Meow, Huples cat. Come with me now. I'm going to go on a mock bug out in arduous circumstances. This is the day before the morning after. I'm going to go on a bug out walk tomorrow using my theories of bug out. Tomorrow I'm going to get up early and I'm going to head out the door. I'm going to go on the first stage of my bug out to the Shire, assuming I have no bikes and I have no car and there's no transportation. I will of course not be taking Wooly, though I do have a backpack for Wooly and I will show that at some time. But I think 3 o'clock in the morning won't be a good time for him. So this is kind of an after action report before the action. I'm going to show you what I'm taking and I'm going to talk about why I took it and why I altered things and what I think about the whole concept of bug out, because taking video when it's pitch black outside is not always the best idea, is it? So initially I decided to do up the old backpack that we have for day hiking, and it's heavy and I'm not really happy with it and it's kind of bulging. There's a reason it's that heavy. It's because I'm actually going to do some breakfast and some coffee for Kitty and for Wolfie, so I actually have taken cooking gear with me. Generally speaking, there would be no cooking gear. If your bug out was 20 miles or less, this is the sort of thing you should be thinking about. You can put water bottles there and there, and you've got a fairly decent pack to put in gels and bars and a compass and maybe even a small knife. The goal would be to get from work to home, and it's not a far distance, so why carry redundant pack? Well, if you get home and the people have taken it over and you can't get in, all your stuff's in there, Huples, you're going to die. Even if I have that, in that scenario, I'm still going to die. Rather than cart that stuff around me, why not put it in packets around the periphery of your property or in park areas where it won't get found, so you actually have the ability, without being violent, to get supplies and grit down. And who wants to carry stuff? So I haven't had my hair cut, but I'm planning to have it cut tomorrow. This is what it's like after wash. It's rocking quite the 1970s look at the moment, and I'm not really keen on that. So tomorrow afternoon, when I have a bath after this, I will take the opportunity and get Kitty to cut my hair. So if you're going to think you're going to need a backpack to move out to get back in arduous circumstances, try not to buy what was probably a $20 one from Amazon. Consider investing some money in a more decent pack, which I have here. This is going to contain much more than that, give me some space. More importantly, the straps are actually broader and more comfortable and can be adjusted. And I have the chest strap that works. So because I plan to be out for about 5 hours or 6 hours, I'm going to take 2 bottles of water, which will be inadequate, but there will be a third bottle of water, a litre bottle, inside the pack. Plastic, because I don't want it to be heavy. These are metal because this is a worst case survival. Emergency poncho and a survival blanket. I should not need either. I should be adequately dressed for the conditions and I shouldn't get myself hypothermic. But I got this, I think, from my pocket box a while ago, so I'm going to take that and we'll try that out, because probably we're not going to be very happy with it. Probably 15 years old. We will try that. I have tried one previously on a forest hike. It wasn't bad actually. Quick Cut Oats for breakfast. Maple powder for sweetener. This is an easy bit stove. The only point of having one of these, as far as I'm concerned, is in a car kit if you have to bug in somewhere sheltered like at work for a long period of time. I'm not really convinced it's a good idea. It is, however, very lightweight. This is of course a Stanley Cup Kit. This is a second one I got. It's not my camping one, so I actually want to get it out and use it tomorrow, make sure it actually functions. It probably will. And it also has the lighter in. I have a lot of lighters floating around. This of course is the weight of the pack. This is not what I'm taking. I'll take a little bit of this. It's basically a fire starter designed for the Biolite. This is the Biolite system with the kettle pot. Get it with the kettle pot. Fits inside the kettle pot. The kettle pot actually allows you to cook water very quickly. Unfortunately, it weighs about 3.5 kilograms, but it's absolutely a great piece of kit and I highly recommend it. So this is my Biolite stove engine. This is the part that produces air by fan and also produces electricity from wood. Then it just plugs into a USB cable, it plugs into its own solar panels. But I just want to point out, I haven't used this for a year. Well, it's just been stored, and it's been stored indoors. And you'll notice that the battery charge is 100%. Really does last a long time. Quite durable. I've had this about 5 years and I'm quite happy with it. I do have a backup. If this fails, you can still use the Biolite as a rocket stove. Of course, in a 1 to 3 day bug out in normal weather, not deep winter, I wouldn't actually carry the Biolite at all. I would eat cold food and make do with that. And I wouldn't even bring hot drinks. Now, if it's very cold, bearing in mind I live in Canada, my pack would be an enormous army pack, and it would have a really good sleeping system in it, and firewood, and hand saws, and all of that stuff, and foam mattresses. My concept of bug out is actually return home. Most of the time it's going to be less than 30 kilometers. Most of the time you can do that in 1 or 2 nights, being careful. I certainly want to carry lightweight. I don't want to carry heavyweight. I don't want to carry multiple redundancies. I just want something that will basically get me home with a bit of calories and clean water. I'm taking a pair of socks. What I'd actually advise you to do, if you're able, is I use training shoes, trail shoes for bug outs. I just do. I ran for years in them. I just can't wear boots. Take 2 pairs. Set off on the hike with the heaviest pair on your feet, or the tightest pair. Around about 6 to 7 hours into it, switch them out, because the insoles compress, and the more it's compressed, the harder it is to actually walk in a pair of running shoes. Insta powder, tea and coffee, and a bit of toilet paper for toilet paper reasons. This is some Biolite fire starter. I find you don't need much of this at all, and it comes, one of these usually comes in each bag, and I will take some of that with me because I actually plan to do the fire, start the fire using a Bic. I do have a ferro rod on me at all times, and of course today I haven't changed my trousers after work, so here it is. A little knife and a ferro rod. I also generally always carry on my person a flashlight. I do think this is a good idea. There's been numerous occasions where I've had to use the flashlight and I've been really happy to have it on me rather than go and search for one. But I am taking a second flashlight because I'm doing a nighttime start. There's Wolfie. Wolfie recommends you carry a second flashlight that works. This one works. Because I'm not going to shine it in Wolfie's eyes. And I will carry, for redundancy's sake, 4 AA batteries to fit in these in case I need them. With the LED lights these days, the reliability is excellent. My principal use of the flashlight, because it isn't grid down, will be to actually turn it on and direct it like this when oncoming traffic comes towards me. Don't go like this. Never shine a flashlight at anybody. This sufficiently worries them that they slow down and usually avoid you. Yes, I have solar and wind-up flashlights and all of that. I even have Biolite flashlights. This is a minimal stripped-down bug-out. I'll explain the scenario when I do the bug-out, but basically everything's gone to the Shire. I've worked my last shift. I've come home. All the pets are gone. The house is stripped. We've sold it. Yay! And everything's at the Shire. And boom, New York goes up. Washington goes up. Reykjavik goes up because they hit Iceland for some reason. Maybe the radar. For those of you who want to bug out to places like Iceland, consider nuclear targets there. So I now have to get myself to the Shire because I quickly texted Kitty and her family and said, do not come for me. I will be there in 10 to 20 days. Stay in place, keep hidden. If I can't get a text message through to them, I hope they figure that out. The last thing anybody needs to be doing in grid down is driving around trying to find loved ones. And it's a common theme. People are driving to school to pick up 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds in grid down because they haven't got the wit and the intelligence to teach their kids to get the heck out of the school as soon as it's locked down in a situation like that and get home via this route. It really will put you in a lot of danger wandering around a town or a city in a sudden SHTF event trying to find each other. Rely on previous conversations that people will go and do what they need to do. Now obviously if you've got a disabled child or a very dependent relative, you might want to consider abandoning them in a massive situation, because by not abandoning them you might die, and if you die then what happens to everybody else? That probably sounds a bit harsh, but to be frank with you, I think SHTF in a sudden massive global SHTF calamity by a nuclear war will be, generally speaking, a bit harsh. The decisions you make in the first 24 hours will decide whether you make it through the first week or not. The decisions you make in the first week will decide whether you make it through the first month or not. The decisions you make in the first month may or may not decide whether you survive a year. There's going to be some variables called radiation and food and violence. But mostly it's going to be, are you doing the right thing? Are you avoiding getting radiation sickness, etc., etc. In this scenario, I am staying in the basement of this place for 2 weeks before I set out on to the Shire trip. However, Canada has not been hit. and the prevailing winds are out of the east to west. Knowing that, my bug out route, this is actual, avoids prevailing winds. And it also avoids winds coming out of places like Toronto, Ottawa, various Air Force bases like Kingston, and also coming out of nuclear plants like Bruce and Pickering. A bit of thought in advance gives you the idea of where to go. All too often in our society, people are going to bug out on the shortest route. The shortest route might be the longest route, especially if you die. This rounds out what I'm taking, quite expired bars and another sachet of water just to see what it's like. And of course extra batteries, you can't have too many batteries. So these bread bags are great to keep tinder in. I'm actually taking all of the fire starter I don't need to and some of the chips. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go out into the garage and get some dry firewood. It's always worth carrying dry firewood. We've had a lot of rain today. So these three things are called bicycles. I recommend you have a working one for every member of your party, with panniers if possible. This sort of thing is what you really want to be bugging out in when you can't use a car, not on foot. Now obviously if you live in a very mountainous area and you've got the physical fitness required, you might want to look at getting a mountain bike. Despite moving, one of the things that I have kept is 3 bags of this. And what's in here is dry Biolite fuel. 3 bags of it, that would last me a month or more. It really sips the fuel, as you'll see. So you can of course get dry fuel when it's been raining heavily or it's freezing. There's tricks and techniques to that. But if you can get wood fuel and pine cones and birch bark that's on the ground and keep it and let it dry out naturally before you have to use it, it's less calorie expend, it's less stressful. Always try to have a backup supply of fire tinder and a way of starting a fire. Especially if you live in Canada like I do, it's absolutely critical that you can stay warm. This has been a 2021 Hungry Terrier production. Now of course on a 1 day or a 2 day or even a 3 day bug out in normal weather,